Welcome, everyone, to our webinar, Supporting High School to Community College Pathways with High Employer Engagement. My name is Claudia Manus, and I am the Director of NCPN. If you have any questions during the webinar, please put them in chat. We will be monitoring chat and will answer as many questions as possible. This webinar will be recorded, and a link of the webinar will be sent to all registrants within the next week. The webinar will also be posted on our ncpn.info website, along with the slides. At this time, I'm going to ask Ann Beheeler to introduce herself and the other speakers. Ann?
Thank you, Claudia. We're going to start with my introducing myself and Mark Dempsey, who is the Assistant Director for the Convergence Technology Center. I'm Ann Beheeler. I am the PI for the National Convergence Technology Center, which is essentially IT and communications. That's our focus. I'm also PI for our IT Skill Standards Grant and a couple of other things too. But relevant to today, I am the inventor of the BILT model. So we will be telling you a little bit about the BILT model in terms of background, and then we will go into our panel. Mark Dempsey, again, is our Associate Director, and he does a lot of things with the BILT, and he's going to cover the BILT essentials. Here are our presenters today. I'm not going to ask them to come off or to come on camera just yet. We have presenters. I've just introduced myself and I've introduced Mark. We have Kyle Jones, who is the chair and associate professor of computer science and technology at Sinclair College. Thank you, Kyle. I also have Doug Ham here, who is the dean of business, technology, and I can't tell. I'm sorry. Hospitality. I'm sorry. I had a message up in front of his information. He is with Lakeshore Technical College, and both of these gentlemen have very, very active dual enrollment programs with their high schools. And both of these gentlemen have very, very active business and industry leadership teams that drive their work. Next slide, please. So who are we? Well, I just told you that the Convergence Technology Center focuses on IT and communications. We are based at Collin College in Frisco, Texas. We are funded by a National Science Foundation and actually have been funded by the National Science Foundation since 2004 for our regional center and now our national center. Our mission is to support IT infrastructure, cybersecurity, and communications across the country and share our information with colleges that wish to have the material and also with high schools. We have 86 colleges that we are officially working with at this point in a community of practice where the colleges help one another. And then we have others who choose to use our materials online from our website without necessarily telling us. The thing that's essential about what we do is all of work, every bit of our work is co-led by our IT business leaders that we call the BILT. We also provide free professional development for faculty, and those faculty can be community college faculty, but they can also be high school faculty, and they can also be university faculty. So remember that when we get toward the end, we'll talk a little bit more about that. Next slide. I think we can all agree that a major goal for all of our technical programs is to have highly engaged businesses and have students complete our credentials and also be well qualified for the world of work. We want them to be especially well qualified so that they rise to the top of the candidates for the jobs that are open. Next slide. So what is a BILT? I say that a BILT is basically a business advisory council on steroids. The employers actually are put in a co-leadership role for the program. And the BILT model actually works with any kind of technical program at any size college or actually at high schools. But we think the sweet spot is going to be for your high schools to communicate and work with the community colleges in your area on this BILT model. This picture is from the quote unquote good old days before we had the pandemic and before we had to do everything virtual. The BILT members are around the U in the room. We also have several people communicating with us via that conference phone in the middle of the room, and faculty all around the outside of the room. So we do have fond memories of these days, but we've been able to function very, very well using Zoom during this pandemic. Next slide. Benefits. It's a win-win-win for everybody. If you know me at all, I talk about the WIFM, the what's in it for me, from the standpoint of the BILT members, the faculty members, the administrators, and from the grant staff. We want employers that are connected with a pipeline of job-ready candidates to fill the many, many jobs that are open in IT and cybersecurity. We want faculty to know that they're teaching the very latest information that is needed by their students. We want the students to be well informed as well and be ready for internships and job openings that very often will come through the business and industry leadership team members. And we want our programs to have a pool of industry expert advisors for all sorts of different needs, such as employer panels for your high school or college, employer involvement in mock interviews, etc. Next slide. Now I'm going to turn it over to Mark, who's going to talk with you about the essentials of the BILT model. Mark, take it away.
Okay, thank you for that. So we have 7 essential elements for a successful BILT. We have 7 verbs there. You want to assemble a single discipline BILT rather than one big, large multidiscipline group. You want to convene quarterly. You want to schedule time during those meetings for the BILT to talk industry trends. You want to make sure you invite your faculty to attend those meetings to hear from employers firsthand. You want to prioritize once a year a detailed list of entry-level KSAs, that's knowledge, skills, and abilities, via a vote and discussion. You want to then map those prioritized KSAs to the current curriculum to make sure it all aligns, look for the gaps and fill those gaps. And you want to give regular feedback to the BILT regarding how the feedback was used. So that's the quick overview. Let me go through these one by one in more detail. So divide your BILT. You want to make sure you leverage the know-how of your subject matter experts based on their specific discipline. So what that means is something like this. So you want to convene your big group that covers multiple disciplines. And you also have smaller groups that to divide up for the specific topics. Here's how that might work. So in the spring and summer, you might have networking, programming, security BILT all together, one big room, one super meeting, talk about trends. That could happen twice, the spring and the summer. But in the fall, you'll have those sub BILTs, the niche BILTs, for just for those specific areas. They meet separately, 3 different meetings to those KSA votes, talking more specifics about the knowledge, skills, and abilities that entry-level IT workers need to have. So we have the networking BILT meet separately from the programming BILT and security BILT. So you have these 2 groups meeting. You have the super BILT with all the disciplines, talk trends, the big picture stuff, and then divide it up into smaller groups for multiple meetings to really drill down into the specifics of the job skills they're going to need for the curriculum. That's what I mean when we say divide the BILT. Convene quarterly, and always talks about avoiding out of sight, out of mind. To build those relationships, you need to meet regularly so that they see you and you see them. The meetings don't have to be in person. A lot of times people think it has to be in person, but we've proven that virtual Zoom meetings are just as effective. So don't get married to the idea that it has to be in person according to everybody's schedule to come on campus. It can happen online. And for us, we have 3 shorter meetings for the trends, and we do 1 longer meeting in the summertime for the KSA. So we meet 4 times a year. We definitely recommend at least 3 times a year. A lot of schools do it twice, but you definitely want to try as well to get 3 or 4 meetings in as well, a 3rd and a 4th meeting in as well, to have that regular connection and to build those relationships. So convene quarterly. Discuss trends. We talked this briefly already. Those shorter meetings, the ones we do that in February and in August and November. We spend about half an hour to 40 minutes at the top of those meetings, really talking, letting the BILT talk about trends, whether it's perspectives on the current state of the industry, where things are going next, so the future and the current trends. Educators in the room, faculty is there as well. They're hearing firsthand what the BILT members are seeing in the industry. That could be, really, we let them have free reign. What they want to bring up and talk about and discuss, and we let them do it and record it and take minutes. So always give them opportunity to discuss trends. It's not just you driving the agenda of those meetings. Invite faculty. I'm surprised to hear that there are still schools who sometimes don't allow their faculty to attend these BILT meetings with their employers. It's like a closed door meeting. You'll make sure those instructors are in the room with the BILT members, hearing firsthand the perspectives, the recommendations. And also it's good to have the faculty there to ask questions and answer questions. We definitely don't want those, the building should not get sidetracked in the nuances and the details of curriculum, but it's good to have the faculty there if questions arise or if they have questions of the employers as well. So faculty need to be in the room, need to be invited. The annual vote. So this is definitely the cornerstone of the whole process. Once a year in that longer meeting I mentioned that we do in May, the BILT members will prioritize a very detailed list of entry-level KSAs, knowledge, skills, and abilities. And they're looking ahead 12 to 36 months into the future, not just now. You know, the wheels of academia can turn very slowly. So we will make sure we have plenty of lead time to get all these changes implemented into the curriculum. So we do a vote first, then we discuss the vote afterwards. That's what takes most of the meeting, is the discussion. We go line by line with those KSAs and look at the vote and see what needs to be discussed. This is a structured process. We have lots of to-do process documents and videos to explore how this works. It's repeatable. It works for any kind of technical discipline, not just IT. And it works. It's metrics. The cool thing about this is when at the end of the meeting, it's not just meeting minutes. You have a spreadsheet with votes and numbers and actionable items the faculty can use to see what the BILT thought about these KSAs. So the next step, you're not done when you do the vote and the discussion. You take that list and we ask the faculty to map that to the current curriculum. Where are the gaps? If the BILT thinks, you know, this skill is important, are you teaching it? If you're not, is there a way to adjust the courses to fill that gap so that your curriculum is aligned with the workforce needs, what the BILT's asking for and recommending? So you do the meeting with the vote and the discussion, then you take that outcome and you map it to your courses, make sure everything is lined up. And if there's issues, you address those. And the last essential, number 7 here, is to give feedback. Make sure the BILT feels valued and heard and appreciated. You want to show how you implement their suggestions. If they said to do something, show them that you did it. Now, if you can't do it, that's okay. Just make sure you tell them. Don't just ignore their recommendation because you can't do it. A lot of times, if you sort of share your challenges, they can brainstorm with you and find ways to fix that. They can maybe give you some equipment. They maybe help you find adjunct faculty. So it's very important to close the loop and give the BILT members feedback on what you did with what they suggested that you do. That's an important part of the process as well. So those are the 7 essential elements. Again, it's assemble single discipline BILT, convene quarterly, schedule time to do trends talks, invite your faculty to be there in the room when it happens, prioritize that list of KSAs once a year, then you map that list back to your curriculum, and then you give feedback to the BILT on what you did with that recommendation. Those are 7 items. So Anne's going to sort of wrap this up a little bit with a look at the ideal BILT, how that works.
Okay, thank you, Mark. The ideal BILT actually does co-lead your work, and it's very, very important for them to co-lead the work because what they feel like they own, that's going to be the program where they're going to go to hire their candidates or hire their employees. It's very important to focus the BILT on entry-level knowledge, skills, and abilities. We do have them focus on just the knowledge, skills, and abilities. Unfortunately, some business people actually think that designing curriculum is easy, and we all know it's not, but they do know what they want the right skilled job candidate to know and be able to do. So we focus them on the KSAs and leave the curriculum to the faculty or instructors. It is very important for them to share sector trends. We are not fast at responding to needs from our employers. If you are, I want to know your secret. So it's really important to have them focus on the future so that we have time to develop curriculum to address what they think is happening. And that's one of the real reasons that we focus 12 to 36 months in the future for the KSA meeting. And we also focus even as far as 5 years into the future when we're talking about trends so that we can be prepared to address their needs. This whole process has a goal of delivering a workforce ready set of graduates. We want our graduates to be highly sought after and employed in high paying jobs. And we want the employers to be very happy and want to come to our colleges to be able to seek job candidates. Next slide. Okay, I'd like to ask Kyle and Doug to turn on their videos at this point. We would like to welcome them actually to participate at this point in the panel. Again, Kyle is with Sinclair College, and I know that he has a very active dual enrollment program. I also know that he has a BILT model that is working. Same thing for Doug. Doug has an active BILT model and has, I know, at least two colleges, two high schools, if not more, because when I visited Doug, I actually visited two of his high schools. And I cannot tell you how excited those high schools are to work with Lakeshore Tech. Okay, so I'm going to start out with a general question. Doug, would you please give us an idea about how your dual enrollment program works and how you use your BILT model that you have at your college, how you use that information to affect the dual enrollment program? Doug?
Sure. Well, thank you, Ann, and thank you, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you this afternoon. Lakeshore Technical College is part of the Wisconsin Technical College system. So we're in Cleveland, Wisconsin, and we are blessed to have 18 high schools within our service area, dual credit applications. And it's something that I think historically we've always thought about dual credit and our relationships with high schools, but quite often that relationship hasn't been highly organized. It's really been focused around just simply earning college credits before graduating high school without a clear view of a pathway that a high school student may engage as far as an academic pathway and also an occupational pathway. So about 3 years ago, we invested heavily in something that we call College Here and Now. And what College Here and Now is all about is for our IT programs, which are part of my division, we are delivering our full college associate degree programs within our partnering high schools. Now, that's not all of the 17 high schools in our district. Right now, we are actually partnering with 5, 2 of which came on board soon after Ann visited. So when Ann was here, there were only 3 in existence, but this past fall, we launched another 2 schools in our service area. And we've served over 400 students so far in this 3-year period with our College Here and Now. The focal point of this program right now is our IT web and software program. So basically programming for students. We do look in the forward to add networking and a new cybersecurity program into the mix. Now, the great thing about this College Here and Now program is that it allows high school students to earn full college credits without any cost to them or their households. And it's no cost to the high schools. The reason we're doing this is because we recognize 2 things. Number one is we want to do our part to better serve underrepresented and non-traditional students in IT. Oftentimes we call that serving female students as best as we can. And then also we want to make sure that we're serving our district employers in the skill sets that they need. So how we use the BILT very effectively, I might add, is to make sure that our district employers, that their needs are addressed in what we're doing from an educational standpoint. And I think one of the things that we can do as a technical college or a community college is to really be that conduit between our district employers and our high school partners. I think it's very common for high schools to think of your traditional K-12 progression and sending individuals off to a 4-year college. Which is something that I did when I was, back in the early 80s when I was making that transition. But there's a lot of great talent that is looking to be employed locally, to get fantastic entry-level jobs, in this case, in IT fields. And we don't always know as an educational system in our K-12 programs what those employers need. So through the BILT, we're able to bridge that gap between high school educators and our district employers. And I thought it was really important when Mark was going through the essentials, when you talk about inviting the right people to the table, it's not just your college faculty, but also your high school faculty should be there as well. Tools and abilities, or sometimes we call those competencies, are really needed in our programs. And so we've seen tremendous value, and our high school partners have really appreciated the fact that they are valued members at that table. So those 3 meetings a year that we have through BILT, we always have high school partners represented in some way, shape, or form. And as Ann mentioned too, a lot of that representation now is virtual. And yes, we got that idea because of the pandemic, but that's one that will carry on forward because our attendance in those meetings is doing very well because of that virtual aspect. So those are really the benefits we've seen with BILT and with our dual credit relationships in our high school partners.
Hey, yeah, there's one question in the chat box to answer real quick for what Doug
Sure.
was saying. College credit, is it with the community college? Are the credits transferable? Did all 300 students receive their AA degree?
Well, that's a great question. So first of all, it is full college credit. A student that is engaging our program does start to amass their transcriptable credits for their college. We're the college of record for those that are earned. We do have a variety of articulation agreements, both with the UW or University of Wisconsin system, and also all of our other technical college partners. We're one of 16 technical colleges that are part of the Wisconsin Tech College system. And then we also partner with a variety of private four-year institutions. Those are called WICU, the Wisconsin Association of Independent Colleges and Universities. So we have a very robust higher education system in the state. And then, of course, we also have partners that are outside of the state. But everything that the high school student earns is transferable to ourselves or to any of our partner organizations.
Thank you very much. Kyle,
Absolutely.
yeah, stay tuned. We're going to ask questions of Doug as we go along here too. Kyle, would you do the same intro on how Sinclair handles dual enrollment, how the college interaction works, and how the BILT information informs both your program and the high school program?
Great. Yeah. Thanks, Ann. So in Ohio, we actually have had the College Credit Plus program, and it's actually been in the state for quite a while. I think right now Sinclair works with 126 high schools in our area that all offer some sort of dual enrollment or college credit. Now, that's just Sinclair. That's also done at other community colleges across the state to have this College Credit Plus program. And then those students are dual enrolled. And I was thinking that this meeting today couldn't have came at a better time, because I spent my entire day yesterday co-lecturing with a high school teacher. And then this morning, I co-taught with a career center teacher. And I just want to explain there was a little bit of difference between both. The high school teacher is doing direct enrollment. So that high school teacher is teaching our classes at the high school for College Credit Plus. Essentially, I hire her essentially as an adjunct into the department. She's fully qualified. She teaches the classes. Those students get college credit. Then when I spoke at the Career Center today, those students get articulated credit based on Ohio's articulated credit programs. Now, I know that that's probably used across in different states, but there's two different paths. And I just wanted to mention that both of those schools are involved in our BILT. So it doesn't really matter what, for me anyway, if the student is getting direct credit at Sinclair or getting credit from the state, because we're still aligning with the curriculum in our program. Both students can still come to Sinclair in our programs, and they both transfer directly in and directly to our local universities. So that program works out really well. And like I was mentioning with our BILT, we have a lot of our high school members involved, and we actually have a high school in our local area that is a part of the CTC group, and he gets a lot out of it. They're new to this, but we are slowly getting them up and running and involved. But especially with the BILT team, because I'd see if I can say this correctly, it seems like there is a trickle down effect that I'm witnessing right now. And it's whatever curriculum that we're creating, right? The next version is coming out, the next iteration, and we're able to take those other iterations and help them put into high schools. So our BILT team helps us lead the way to like the next generation, while we're also in return helping the high schools take our curriculum and make sure that it's implemented at that level. We do have BILT members that started as BILT members with us that now serve on advisory teams for the local high schools. So they're involved in more than just one way. They're involved with our BILT, and then they're involved with the advisory team at the high schools, because our high schools are required to have advisory teams as well, especially if they're teaching in a career pathway. So if they're a career center, they're required by the state to actually have these advisory teams and stuff. So what's nice is take, for instance, some of the large corporations in the area, they don't know how to connect to some of the high schools. So what they do is they come to us, or they're a part of our BILT or a part of our program, and then we help them design or implement their ideas and their thoughts or get them connected to the local high school. And I just wanted to mention Macy's and Kroger, because I'm in the Southern Ohio area. This is where Kroger's headquarters is, the food giant. And we helped them. The CISO had money that he wanted to implement in for K-12, get them connected to the local high schools through our program. We have a local high school that uses our College Credit Plus program right next to some of the facilities that where Kroger's main headquarters are, got them connected to the instructors, then got student scholarships. It was a great way that we were able to connect together. I hope that answered your question, Ann.
Thank you, Kyle, and thank you, Doug. I'm going to make just one statement right now about the BILT team. I really do see it as basically putting structure and repeatability around the normal advisory meeting. We do have discussions just like an advisory council does, but the fact that we have structure around it with voting on the potential knowledge, skills, and abilities fuels that instruction. It's also repeatable. I've been back and forth between industry and academia. And when I was in industry, I served on an advisory council. We spent our best time there trying to give that institution the very latest information about what they should be teaching, what changes needed to happen. And then I came back a year later. They were only meeting every year, and nothing had happened. And that was a little bit demoralizing. What we're doing is putting structure around those conversations such that the educational institution has a commitment to try to handle all of the priorities that the businesses want. Maybe can't happen, as Mark mentioned. Sometimes what they want is going to require too many hours of training to fit in the schedule. Sometimes it may require a whole different set of equipment. Sometimes it might require an adjunct instructor that we just can't find. So there are lots of things that you can problem solve along with your business team. But I will say, to a person, the people that really are involved in the BILT model feel a real sense of ownership for the programs that what they're advising actually will affect. And because they feel a sense of ownership, they are very likely to choose the graduates from these programs first for internships, for tours, often for mentoring, that sort of thing. We have a whole lot of training on this, and we're not going to even come close to bringing that up today. Aren't you glad? But I'm going to ask Mark right now for a question from the chat box.
So we had one earlier. Can you talk a little about the structural elements make this different than the advisory council? Like, what is the sort of the role of how is the leadership arranged, the roles, the format of this co-leadership concept with the BILT?
Kyle or Doug, would you like to handle that, or I will if you would prefer me to?
It doesn't matter. I just wanted to mention that, take for instance, I met the first couple of times without identifying the chair of the group, and a person arose that I knew that started asking questions, wanted to be involved more and more, so that it was kind of easier to ask that person to kind of lead in. But I think I did see a part of the chat. I helped that person put the meetings together. I just want to state that, like, I'm not turning around and putting all of this extra weight on this person. You know, I reserve the rooms. If there was any food, like I help them organize it. So it's not like I'm adding an extra task or weight. And I did want to mention this real quick. A lot of the people on my BILT, their companies are in support of them doing this as their own professional growth, because I was nervous there for a little while because I came out of industry asking people for their time. But then in return, they tell me, hey, Kyle, you know, my company was looking for something to get involved in. I was looking for my own performance review to get involved in something. And I've noticed that they've really enjoyed working in K-12 too, you know, getting involved in that. So I just wanted to mention that our business people are also interested in having an outcome, a goal, and having something that impacts their local area where their company is at.
I'd like to make a comment about the efficiency of what we do. I am getting just across the board feedback from the business people that they enjoy having the the structured electronic voting process as a basis to for the discussion in the room, because what they are saying to me is that it is a very efficient use of their time. The conversation does not ramble. The conversation is very directed to either the items that they rank really, really high, or even sometimes it's to the items that surprisingly come out low. So they really enjoy the efficiency. And one other thing that we always do, if we ask them to meet for 2 hours or 1 hour or 3 hours, by the time that clock ticks on the last minute, we are ending the meeting. We never go over by any amount of time. When I served on the advisory team, they would schedule it for an hour with, I'm sorry, a rubber chicken dinner. They didn't have a culinary program. Sorry, Doug, you do. I'm sure yours would be great. But they would schedule it for an hour, but sometimes we'd be there 2 hours later. And that was never a really good situation, because I agreed for them to have an hour and then they took 2. And that was back in the days when I was a little more hesitant to just get up and leave. But I agree with you, Kyle. We did not start with a chairperson originally, and we do all the legwork, logistics. Actually, we is Mark does that for us. He does all the room reservations, the Zoom reservations, following up on invitations, etc. We do not make the BILT chairperson do that for us. We do not at all. But we didn't start there. In fact, in our entire 17 years, we've only had 2 chair people. One of the first chairman actually was relocated to Europe for 3 weeks out of 4, so he had to kind of give it up. And the other person that we have has been doing it now for 6 or 7 years, and it's going very well. How about another question, Mark?
All right. Would it be beneficial to incorporate youth/student voice in the BILT?
Do you have it, Doug, Kyle?
We have not yet incorporated any student or youth voice. I think it's a great point. We do that occasionally in our traditional advisory meetings. So those are BILTs without steroids, I guess, as part of Ann's definition earlier. Typically, when we have students participate in advisory, it's representing a club or some extracurricular activity that is connected to a specific program. We always have an open invitation, but rarely do we have students take advantage of it. I think it would be a great addition down the road to at least let our students know that these individuals are here. But we actually do something different. I didn't really talk that much about, but one of the advantages of our BILT construction is we have road shows that we take members of the BILT and we go into the high schools as a way of communicating with either students that are already in the program, or for those students that are considering getting into an IT program of study, that we will go in and we will talk about the occupation, the industry, the need, the day in the life, those types of things. And so sometimes our BILT members do get directly connected with, in this case, high school students. And that's one other thing I wanted to mention about participation in the BILT, as far as the forward-thinking companies like a Kroger, or I think was it Macy's was the other one, Kyle, that you mentioned. But the organizations that look at this as professional development. I'm also aware of organizations that look at this as part of their recruitment efforts. It's very hard to find talent these days, as many of you may know. And for a lot of our BILT members, this is just one additional way to get their company out, their brand out, and have people think about them, not only as a place where they can buy groceries, but a place where they can earn a living in order to buy those groceries. So BILT has a lot of positive outcomes for our industry partners as well.
Mhm.
I'll make a comment that we very often will bring students into the BILT meeting to talk about what they are doing, talk about their program, talk about what their aspirations are. And most usually when we do that, in fact, one of the young ladies that was in the pictures as you went through it is now a full-fledged member of the BILT. I brought her out when she was maybe halfway through her associate's degree, and I whispered in the BILT chairman's ear and said, "You want to watch her. She's really a go-getter, very, very sharp, and you probably want to hire her in 2 or 3 years." He hired her in 2 or 3 months because he was so impressed with her animated activity, about how sharp she was when he asked questions. And what he did was basically take her under his wing and started paying for all of her education. And she decided she wanted a bachelor's degree as well. He paid for that too. So what's not to love about that sort of thing? And that's pretty typical about what can happen. We do have her on the BILT team. We also have someone on the BILT team who graduated about 10 years ago, which is quite interesting, the different perspectives, very, very useful. But we do find it's really good to have students not necessarily on the BILT, but presenting to the BILT. Mark, do we have another question? Oh, Kyle, go ahead.
Oh, no, that's okay. I was just going to say, I do have a student sit in. It's actually Amber Lee. And I know that you guys know Amber Lee. She's great to work with. And actually, from some of the conversations, we started finding that we needed to make videos to help students learning a little bit more, because our BILT team said, well, your students need to sharpen up on this, on that. Well, we were able to write a supplemental into one of our grants that we were able to bring our student in to make the videos that were the recommendation. So that kind of led to like a part-time job for our student then to help us create the curriculum through the suggestion.
Sure. What's next, Mark?
So Doug, you said that Lakeshore instructors are instructors of record. What credentials must the high school teachers have?
So we are, our accreditation body is the Higher Learning Commission, HLC, and we need to make sure in any dual credit agreements, if the students are going to get full transcripted credits, that the instructor of record is someone who matches all of the HLC requirements for a collegiate instructor or a teacher. We've been pretty blessed. We've gotten pretty lucky with 3 of our 5 high school partners have IT instructional teachers that do have work experience backgrounds, if not educational backgrounds, in the discipline. And so there we find that those high school partners can teach more of the curriculum than some of the other partners that we have. If a high school does not have the capability to present an instructor or a teacher that can teach to that standard, then we do the delivery of the curriculum. So in 2 cases, students will work exclusively with Lakeshore Technical College faculty members. In 3 cases, we pick them up after about the 3rd or 4th class in the continuum. So it's something that we look at each and every high school relationship. In fact, our 2 initial high schools didn't start off with that kind of instruction, and then they actually went out and hired a particular individual who splits his time between the 2 schools because they're part of the Sheboygan Area School District up here. And that was specifically so they could have more control over getting those college credits in their students' hands.
Yeah. So we're the same way. We're a part of the Higher Learning Commission. For my department, the person only has to have the degree above the level they're teaching and trusted years of experience or an industry certification. So if an instructor has a baccalaureate degree at our local high schools with years of experience in IT, they can teach it and and we can offer college credit through them as well. Also, Sinclair's got a program with our local university at University of Cincinnati that we have a fellowship program that if you come in and you don't have the amount of years or experience, you're actually enrolled in the fellowship program to actually finish up some 18 hours of higher IT instruction in order to be accredited to teach.
Okay. High schools typically have only 1 teacher. Where and how do you suggest they get help to form their BILT?
Well, I'm going to jump in and then the other gentleman can jump in too. But my suggestion is that maybe you don't have to worry about forming your own BILT. You might be better off working in conjunction with a local community college and help them to figure out how to form a BILT. we formed our first BILT was formed regionally across several colleges. It was actually in the time frame after, some of you may not be old enough to remember, in the early 2000s. Well, of course, you know, we had 9/11 that affected us greatly, but then we had what we call the .com bust, where there were, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of people laid off across the US in IT. They were offshoring almost everything because it was going to be cheaper. Well, it's kind of gotten onshored to some extent at this point. Anyway, very long story short, at that point, it was hard enough for a single college to form a BILT or a really good advisory team at that point. We're one of 11 colleges in the DFW area. So we actually formed the BILT for all of the colleges together. They all shared it, because think about it. If you've got someone from some of the big concerns, like, I don't know, maybe you're Kroger's or Macy's, or maybe it's IBM, or maybe it's Dell, wouldn't you as an employer want to be able to share your knowledge with a lot of people at the same time? It is true that you do need support locally. And one of you mentioned that well, Kyle, I think it was you, where one of the BILT members actually is now on the high school team as well. So I would highly suggest, rather than trying to set up your own BILT, that you work with your community college in the area. And if they don't have one, we know how to help them. Doug or Kyle, comments? What would you recommend?
Well, it's interesting that question came up. I had never really spent, a whole lot of time working with a high school teacher other than yesterday. And I found out that the high school instructor that teaches her IT classes, she's over a team of instructors at the high school. And that was everything from business to personal finance and all that. So it was actually multiple people. And I was kind of thinking, like what Ann was saying, like you might make a regional one, but I was thinking even in that school, she could even make a BILT even with just those teams, even just at her school. And again, in Ohio, if you teach a career or tech class, you have to have an advisory team. And what I would promote would be to convert that advisory team into a BILT.
Definitely.
So in Ohio, anyway, a lot of that's already started, and they're like, I don't know, 40% down the right path. So I think, at least in our disciplines anyway, that they would just need that extra push to complete the BILT model.
Okay. All right. We have several other questions. I think we're going to need to promise to answer these and get it back to you, honestly, because I don't think we're going to have enough time to do all of these questions.
Maybe it varies, but is the idea that students take specialized college credit courses in high school, then transition directly to employment, or on to colleges for further instruction?
Well, I think with this particular one, we have both pathways. We have students that are graduating high school with an associate's degree through our program, and they do decide to take that entry-level position as a technician in their discipline. We also see cases where students maybe don't finish their entire associate degree, but they've amassed a certain amount of credits, and they can finish off that associate degree with us. We've also seen students that have an associate degree and they go right into a four-year institution using that articulation agreement. In fact, we have a very close relationship with Lakeland University, which is right down the road. We call it Lake to Lake, and students go in and they are a junior in standing in their junior class, and all 60 credits transfer. So it really puts the options in the students' lap as far as what they want to do. And oftentimes, like Ann mentioned anecdotally with the student, where somebody became their almost benefactor and paid for their baccalaureate program, et cetera, quite often companies will hire somebody, of course, and then there's a tuition reimbursement or some other kind of benefit that the student can take advantage of and continue that path. So we're happy for a student to come and be with us for a year or two afterwards, or to go right into employment or right onto a four-year institution.
Okay. Mark?
Under Perkins, secondary and post-secondary ed are encouraged to participate in joint advisory committees. How would this work in the BILT model?
It would work just like what we're talking about. We would probably need to change when the BILT meetings occur. In our cases, most of them are in the mornings, and I know high school instructors are going to be teaching at that point, most likely. So we probably need to change when those meetings occur. However, I think it would work just fine. It would work just like it did for having one regional BILT to support 11 colleges. I think it would be great. Kyle, Doug?
Yeah, that's actually something that we've been considering with the BILT because we have a local high school, right, that wants to be a part of this. So we've actually been kicking that around, and I have not had any pushback from businesses. The only thing that I had from one of my BILT members was he was like, "Hey, all I do is just tell my job that I'm going to do this, and I'm going to take off a couple hours early from work," because about that like 3 o'clock, 3:30 time frame worked well, right? So one of my BILT members was like, "Well, then I'll just take the rest of the day off," and it kind of worked both ways.
Well, that's good. One thing I will point out at this point is it's very important that the people that do the voting on the knowledge and skills truly be a subject matter expert in those areas. So we would be happy to work with some of you who are considering developing a BILT to problem solve on how. For example, some institutions want to have one advisory council to support all of BILT, including programming, including tech support, including cybersecurity and cloud. And that can become a little bit difficult, but we have some ways of doing that as well. Mark, another question?
All right. Do you have summer workshops / boot camps for secondary ed students? And if so, does this have an impact on fall enrollment?
Doug, Kyle?
We've had several summer camps. We actually participate with some of our local universities. So like Gen Cyber, sorry. That's a great one that we run. We also partnered with AT&T to run hackathons and things in our area. That's been great because we can actually recruit the students to participate in those events from the high schools that are a part of our BILT teams. It allows us a direct line to the students to be able to participate. That has helped a lot because in our area, students have a lot of different universities that they can go to and transfer. But once students start realizing that the credit that they were currently doing in high school was Sinclair credit, we also offer scholarships if students were to continue from maybe the summer camp or from their high school. That has really helped, kick that off. And when do the hackathons take place? The hackathons normally take place in the summer. We've ran one every year. AT&T has been gracious enough to give us money to help, buy prizes and have awards with them. So we've run one in the fall, like, in the October, November, but the ones in the summer get a lot more participation. We also run camps where students build like Pi-cades, like Raspberry Pi, arcade cabinets, and we get a lot of great enrollment from that. And again, we recruit from the students that are involved in the local high schools that are in our dual credit programs or tech prep programs.
Yeah, Kyle, where do you hold those hackathons? Is it on your campus or at a facility elsewhere?
Yeah, we do it on our campus. And then I'm pretty sure there's another, I'm not exactly sure the funding mechanism but we pay for the busing to our facilities, right? So we actually have a busing service that will collect students at whatever school they're at, because we didn't want transportation to be one of the reasons that students were unable to be a part of it. Now we are located in downtown Dayton. So again, we didn't want, students having a busing problem or whatever to be able to get to these hackathons, but we run them at our regional centers. Actually at the one that Ann I took you to not all that long ago, and then downtown. So we offer multiple locations, and we have busing services that'll actually bring the students from their locations to that. And I think there's another funding mechanism, either a grant or another funding mechanism that Sinclair used for that busing piece, right? Because getting the students there actually was a hurdle that we had to kind of figure out from the first place. And then again, AT&T is on our BILT team, right? So then that helps
Yeah,
kind
that
of
helps
connect the
to get
dots, right?
donations.
Right. It brings
Yeah.
it brings everything back together.
Yeah, sure. How about one more question, Mark?
Ooh, I think a good one. How do you promote faculty engagement in the BILT model at the high school and college level? How do you get faculty involved and committed?
Well, it helps to have an administrator over those faculty who believes in the BILT model. I will say that. Also, one of the approaches that we have used is to say, hey, let's just pilot this and see what you think. I have to say that often I have helped colleges implement BILT teams for, well, all sorts of things, welding, certified medical assisting, all sorts of things like that. And sometimes the faculty are really hesitant to have the businesses be co-leaders of the work. That was really off-putting. But what I ask them to do is have an open mind. Let's run it and see what you think. And then we'll have a discussion afterwards. And in every single case, the information that the faculty members gained from the BILT process was so valuable to them that they were on board. I didn't have anybody, giving their administration any grief about changing the approach. So what about you, Kyle or Doug? Have you had any difficulties?
Sure. So just real quick, are we saying the high school teacher? We're not saying like the college faculty member involvement in.
It was both.
It was, yeah,
Okay.
right.
So I've noticed that our high schools have been very excited to bring something like this on. Just real quick, one of our local high schools that actually started doing this, one of the members actually are letting him over the summer kind of do an internship at that company so he can stay involved with what's going on and what's happening. So there was big buy-in because the school was like, hey, you've been instructing for a long time. Do you, maybe go out and get some field experience? And his companies were actually letting him come in for weeks at a time, right? To rebuild some skills, to get an idea of what companies and local things did in our area. And I thought that was a great reason. He was looking for that to be an outcome anyway for his job. And then we had an employer step up that was like, yeah, that's fine. Come in with us.
Okay. Doug, any comment?
Yeah, and something that we've done over the summers, these past 3 summers that we've been doing this, is we've worked very closely with our high school instructors to bring them into our classrooms, and we've actually put them through our program. Sometimes we want to make sure that they're not teaching something that they're not sure what those next steps are that their students are going to be pursuing. So to show them the pathway, we found to be very useful. And then much like Kyle just mentioned, as far as the connections with our BILT members, sometimes there's just some organic sharing that takes place that is really beneficial to our high school partners and our faculty in the high schools to see the bigger picture of what they're doing in the classroom, what it means to their students.
Well, I would like to thank everyone on the panel for this really open discussion. We have many questions that aren't answered. We do have some questions actually that are answered on our website. You can see the link that Mark put in the chat box. And I think that might be the best way for us to just post some of these other questions and put them there as well, so that you can follow up. Would you like to go back to the presentation? So how do you get involved? That's the next slide. You can leverage what we've already created. All of our BILT meetings are recorded. All of the KSA analyses are there. We have them for infrastructure and communication, but we also have them for tech support, technical project management, data management, data analysis, data analytics, and also for software development. And that is actually on our itskillstandards.org site, which is part of the CTC site. You'll see it when you get there. So there are summaries of information already there. You can use that. We also want to strengthen relationships with you. If your high school would like to be involved and your community college isn't, if you will help us to get to the community college, we will work with them to get involved with us. We'll also work with you individually if you want us to. You can always schedule your employers from the BILT for Q&A panels with students. That's very, very important. And then I told you I was going to tell you about free faculty development. We run a faculty development institute every summer. What are the dates, Mark?
The summer, July 11th to the 15th, 2022.
Okay, this is going to be in Texas, at Frisco, Texas, and we're going to provide some travel money for you. We're also going to have some of the options or track options that will be virtual. So contact us. We'd love to have you benefit from us. It is taxpayer money. This is what's funding what we do. We love it. It's great fun, but we want to make sure that you have opportunities as well. And then you can join our Convergence College Network community. Nothing says that you have to be a community college in order to participate in our network. And you might want to save the chat because there's a lot in the chat today in terms of links. And I'm going to turn it back over to Claudia at this point, who's going to close us out. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ann, Mark, Kyle, and Doug for sharing this information with us. For more information on the BILT model, join us for NCPN Connect 2021, November 4th through 5. Information about the conference is on our website at ncpn.info. We will be sending you a link to the recording within the week. Have a great rest of the day and stay safe.